What's up, you guys? Welcome back. Hey, I got my shirts in. You like it? Celebrity barber for regular people. I'm trying to come up with some passive advertising slogans for you guys so that if you're wearing this kind of shirt in public, someone might come up to you and say, hey man, you cut hair? You're like, yeah, I do. And I can cut yours too. I'll put you on point. Today I'm gonna bring you guys the flame because I'm trying to do these edits a completely different way. I'm revolutionizing the way I do my tutorials on my channels. This will be the first one that I do with this sort of setup to it, and we're gonna really crawl through this fade. And again, I just wanna caution anybody else who's watching this. This is not a video that I edited to make myself look good or anything like that. This is for the dedicated learner. It's kinda long and it's all about teaching. So that's what this video is about. And if that's not for you, dude, I totally get it. But if you are trying to learn and you do wanna improve, this is where you wanna be, so let's get started. I'm gonna show you guys how to take him from this to this, and the steps that I took in between. Okay, I feel that most of you guys can probably put the skin line in. It just takes some time, you gotta work it, and you just wanna make sure that you have it the same on both sides. So use your mirror and use the best barber tool you got. We've talked about it many times. Does anybody know what it is? Leave it in the comments. There's a few things that I wanna talk about regarding the electric shaver. I'm gonna use this box for an example for my electric shaver. When I'm going up, I'm going against the grain because of course most people's grain grows like this. So that's gonna put a very harsh, close cut on the skin, which is what we want. We want to get it down the skin, right? So we want that harsh, close cut. However, once I start reducing tension and leaving the head, you're going to notice that that's also going to begin to blend. So I had to grab the noisiest box, right? As I come up with this electric shaver and I get to my 5-0 line, you're going to notice that a lot of barbers like to run it right into this 5-0 line and then they try to clean it up with the trimmer later. We're not doing that here. You're gonna find it a lot more difficult to get this 5-0 line out if you do that. However, if you feather it into this line, meaning that when you get near that line, let's say you're a 1/4 inch. I know this is blown up a little bit, but as soon as I get all the way down here, you can push as hard as you want, you can do whatever you want, because you wanna remove all this area. You want this completely 86'd out. Boom, gone, so there's no hair left, right? But as soon as I start getting up here, I need to start reducing my tension, okay, and leaving the head a little bit. And that's gonna help to create a little bit of a blend between here and here. So that basically you have it completely skinned to your 5-0 line, and this is smooth and blended out all the way around the head. And of course we talked about working fast before. Make sure that you do these steps all the way around the head. When you see me doing this on film, it's just for camera angle. I try to keep it still so that you can see what I'm doing. But when I'm actually working in the trenches, you gotta do this all the way around the head because it's gonna get it done a lot faster. Because simply reducing your tension alone might not be enough. Just leaving the head like this might not be enough, right? So I wanna show you another technique you could use. You push it into the line and you come down with it. So you're basically gonna be doing this. You're coming down with it. That's gonna take less hair. Why? Because we're going with the grain. So if we're coming down with it, we're going with the grain. Another technique you can use, it's called peppering it, where we're just tapping it. We're tapping it, tapping it, tapping it up and down any areas that are giving you an issue, or you can just flick it with the corner. So usually a combination of these techniques are gonna help you get that skin line out, and you're gonna notice how I erase the skin line very easily with the Braun Series 9. However, whatever electric shaver you have, they all will work pretty much the same, and you'll be able to get that line out. However, the Braun Series 9 works a lot faster. And if it's something you don't have in your kit, it's something you might want to consider strongly because it is such a powerful machine. Okay, the next step that you're going to see me do is I have my 5-0 line still. Now I'm coming underneath that where I just did my electric shaver. So I'll just put an ES. I just did my electric shaver all down here, right? And I have my 5-0 line still that you could put in with either your trimmer or your detachable. Now, if you have a little bit of hair that's just not looking right, and if you have just a tiny bit, you need to go back one step, which means that we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna grab our trimmer, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna clean up anything that might not be blending so smooth. You need to get this perfect before you move on, and we're gonna use this technique over and over again. You're gonna see me go 1 step forward and 2 steps back. I do this throughout all my fades because you wanna build on a foundation that's strong. This is like a pyramid, and if the bottom is perfect, the top will be perfect too, because we're gonna work our way up. You're gonna have less cleanup work and less shadow chasing to do after this is done. Okay, I wanna refer to my fade scout. I'm gonna put that up real quick for you. If you need to, screenshot it, and probably it would be a good idea to go ahead and copy it down on a little piece of paper so that you remember it if it's something you don't understand yet. However, if it is something you do understand, let's go forward. So now we're going to begin erasing this 5-0 line. And the way that I like to do it, and I think that makes the most sense, is to go ahead and put that second guideline in with your open taper on your clipper, like you see me doing. Now, a lot of people wonder, what happens during the middle steps? What are you doing with the lever? Can you please make a video that shows every lever move that you make? It will not help you if I made a video that showed every lever move that I make, because every single hair is different and every single situation is different. Some will require more moving of the lever and some will require less. However, it will always require less moving of the lever if you're thorough. So let's be thorough about this. I'm going to go through this real quick and show you what's going on here. So we want to get rid of this 5-0 line, right? That's what we want to do. And we want to just be left with a smooth blend from skin to open taper. So that's what this line is. This is open taper. So from skin to open taper, we want it to be perfect before we move on. Okay? As perfect as we can make it. And if that means we need to go 2 steps back, we will go 2 steps back, like you'll see me do. Now, in this case, how do I get rid of this 5-0 line? We have the open taper line and we have the 5-0 line. Alright, so this means that it's 100% open. We're going to put 100% open at the top. Okay? And this means that this is the 5-0 line. So this means that I could close my taper all the way. So I'm going to say that that's 0% closed. It's a 0. It's all the way closed. Okay, so we're going to just use percentages to break this down. All right, so my lever, I might begin to close my lever and I'm keeping it on an angle. So the clipper blade remains on an angle, or I'm only touching one of the corners down. And as I do this, in between steps are always, this is always mandatory on the in between steps. You will always want to tip this and put this down on either one corner, or you want to put this down at an angle. The reason why you're going to do that is because it's going to reduce the chances for errors, and you're going to have a much easier time getting this fade straight if you do this. If you hold your clipper blade flat, the odds that you're going to put another line in are very high, and you're going to wind up raising the fade up higher to try to compensate to fix it. Here we are at 100% open and at 0% closed. Okay, what we need to be doing when we come up, keeping that clipper on an angle like we talked about, we'll say come up to just underneath where we put our open taper line, and that means that we've closed our lever 10%, which leaves us at about 90%. About 90% open. It's 10% closed. Okay, and we're going to work in this area. As we move down, we'll say we bumped it down to 70%. It's about 1/3 of the way closed, and we're working it back and forth this way. As we move it down, we're all the way down to say 20%. And we might even go as much as 5% before we actually go all the way down to 0. So it's just a case of your lever's wide open. It closes slightly here. It closes slightly more here, slightly more here, slightly more here, until it's all the way closed. What are you left with when it's all the way closed? What you're left with is a smooth blend from skin all the way up to the open taper. Is a repeat of this process. This process doesn't change. It will always be the same. The only thing that's going to change is the guard that I put on there. I'm going to begin with the 0. Once I put the 0 on, I'll repeat all these steps. However, the only thing that will change is instead of this being an open taper line, an open 0 line. Okay? So from open 0 line, and then down here, this will be the open taper line. And this is what we want to remove. Forward. In between that first step, you see me go back with the trimmer, and when I go back with the trimmer, you need to keep that on an angle. It's so easy to cut another line in it with this, and you just see me keeping it on an angle and just using the corner, and I'm cleaning up that blend from where I went from my electric shaver to my closed taper at this point, and you're going to see me making that blend and that transition as smooth as I possibly can before I move on to the next step, which of course will be the 0. Once I was done with the 0, you'll notice that I still had some residuals, so I had to go back with the open taper. And if I need to go back even further, 2 steps back, that would mean that I might even have to close this a little bit, because once you put the clipper on the angle, you're going to notice that it's actually going to take less hair as soon as it's on an angle, because once it's flat, it's taking the maximum amount of hair, all that hair, right? But as soon as it becomes up and on an angle, you wind up taking less hair. So it's possible that you might have to close the lever a little bit even during this step and go as far as 1 or 2 steps back. If you don't do this, you're going to go forward, and when you're done, you're going to have a bunch of shadows and you're not going to be able to fix them. So fix them right now where you have your parameters defined. You know that, hey, I'm working in between here and here. And you know that that's where you need to stay. So you're not moving up and you're not moving down, because you know exactly where you're supposed to be. That's why these guidelines are superior to, say, just blending from the top and hoping that the best comes out. I don't support that. I don't believe that that's the easiest way to learn this. I think that the easiest way to learn this is to define your parameters and work in between them. Okay? And once I go on to my 1, it's going to be the exact same thing. At the very top, I have the 1 open. I might put in a slight guideline. However, you're going to see it's a little bit easier once you get to this point, because you're working with longer hair. It shows the scalp a little less, and mistakes will be reduced by that fact alone. Because when we're working down on those skin levels at the 0, the open taper, or the trimmer, it's very easy to pick up lines. It's very easy to see those mistakes because the scalp is bright, right? And it's going to put you on blast for any mistake that you make. As the hair gets longer, it'll start to hide kind of some of what you're doing. So you won't be able to see that scalp is like a backlight. And this kind of hair that I decided to do in this video is a very difficult person to do a fade on, because his hair is super, super fine. And when I go through there, if you make just the slightest mistake on this type of hair, you're going to see it from a mile away. And you guys would eat me alive in the comments if it wasn't absolutely perfect, or as perfect as I could do. So each step seems different, but the truth is each step is the same. Now, of course, you can mix this fade scale up, and you can do this in any order that you want to do this in. I prefer to do it in the order that it was made by the manufacturer, because if the manufacturer set this up just perfectly, I think it only makes sense for those who are new to follow it the way it was set up perfectly. So follow the fade scale the way that I showed you and work each step up accordingly. You can look for ways to save time, and you can look for ways that will make you possibly more comfortable and maybe make things come out better for you. However, when you're first starting out, it's best that you learn the proper basics, sort of the way I like to say, learn the rules before you break the rules. Okay, so in the end, the only thing that's really happening during a haircut is this. If this was the scalp line, okay, and these were the hairs sticking out, you're taking it from very short all the way down the skin into whatever length you choose. Now these guards are going to help you work your way through this process all the way up. However, if you've made any mistakes during your process, you're going to see something like this, where basically you did your blend pretty good to here, and then you have a line. Maybe you did your blend pretty good to here, and then you have a line. And if you see lines, this is what's actually happening on the scalp level. Now, if you are using your proper steps, you're following your fade scale, you're going to see that it's very easy to maintain this taper because it was all set up for you. Now, and you follow your steps, and you're not going to have a problem, and you won't run into issues like this. However, this does not account for density of the hair. People wonder all the time, why do I see so many shadows? I followed all my steps. I did everything you said. Well, that's the problem, because some areas of the scalp have a lot more density. And if you don't know what density is, that's the amount of hair per square inch. If the amount of hair per square inch is, say, greater in one area and less in another area, well, what do you think is going to happen if you pass a number 1 over that area versus the other area? Of course, you're going to see darkness. You're going to see more shadows in that area of high density. And you're going to see less because you're going to see more scalp in that area of low density. So what that means is we basically need to texturize that, which means to remove bulk without affecting length, and we need to get in there and we need to reduce some of those little shadows. You'll see me doing a lot of that during this haircut because I wind up using the corner and going in and doing a lot of little cleanup jobs because of that exact reason. So if you followed all your steps and you did everything correctly, you didn't make a mistake, and I don't want you to get down on yourself over this. I just want you to recognize the fact that there is density, and it does vary on the same person from time to time. You could have someone with extremely thick hair in some areas and relatively thin hair in other areas. So what we're going to do in those cases is we're going to work our steps, we're going to understand our parameters, and we will go 1 to 2 steps back, and we will flick out those little shadows using the corner or using the techniques that we discussed. Now, because of that, what that means is once I get to that line that I plan on making, because I'm making that guideline, I can start to scoop out and away during this process. This is not necessary, but this can speed you up before you get to the next step. So I begin coming out as soon as I reach that point that I want, and I'll begin that blend. I'll start to taper the hair slightly. It won't be perfect, but when I go back in there with my 0, I might find it a little bit easier that I might have skipped like half a step there, and I might find it a little bit easier to work that area out. So in this back section, when I do the back section, you can really see me moving the lever. Each time that I move the lever, I've actually showed it on the camera so you can get a feel for how much I did in this case. Now in the back, you have a little bit more room. You can use it to your advantage. If you're not fighting with the colic, or you went and you've cut the colic off, then in that case, you can stretch the fade out a little bit back there and make the blend look a little bit smoother. So there's no reason why you shouldn't stretch the blend out a little bit. So maybe instead of that ½ guideline that you set, you went ahead and you set something like 1 inch to 1.5 inch wide guideline. And that way that when you do that transition, it's perfectly smooth. I really hope this helps. This is probably one of the more in-depth tutorials that I've ever done on a fade. I think that I've covered just about everything that I wanted to cover. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments. And if you guys have any video requests or any ideas or things that you might want me to do and change, go ahead and leave those in the comments too. And I'll get back to each and every one of you the way I always try to. However, now, lately, I've been getting a lot more comments lately, and I'm finding it extremely hard to keep up with. So I'm trying my best to keep up with you guys, and I try to reply to all of you still while I can. And the other thing, I just want to thank you guys, because I just noticed that in I think it was like a week and a half to 2 weeks, I went from 12,000 subscribers and I'm already up to 13 and some change. So this wouldn't be possible without you guys, and I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for checking out my channel. And if you learned something, man, please just give me a little thumbs up, and you might want to share this around, because I think it could help other people. And I'll see you in my next video.
Put the place up. Put my face up. Why you doing all that? Thought you was my wife, but you slapped me in the back.
And now, a word from our sponsors. We don't have any sponsors, okay? This is just me trying to make a difference. I make all the videos, I edit them, I shoot them, I film them, I got all the cameras, the equipment, computers, and it's all very expensive to make these YouTube videos. Okay, anybody who's interested in checking out some of the tools that I use, like this is my total favorite setup. It's battle tested. I've used it for many years. Most of the stuff here has been here for a long time, and it works excellent. Go ahead and click that link in the drop down below and you can check those out. And I finally got some merch up on the channel, and if you decide to scoop one, it really helps the channel out. If this channel helps you out and you want to support it, you want to see more of it, anything you do like that will really help me out. And also, I want to do more product giveaways and stuff like that, but it's expensive, and I left a link to my PayPal down below. If you guys kick in a little donation, we're gonna start getting in some of this. I can start giving away more clippers, and I can start doing some more things. You find it in your heart to throw even just as little as $1 or $2, it could go a long way to getting some of these clippers in some of these people's hands that might need them, and I can continue to do this for more people.